great. Okay, it is 3:10 in the afternoon. It is still Thursday, June 20th, and we're picking up from the caucus session, and I'll turn it over to you, Jen.
Okay, we are back. We have some proposed changes to Article 2 that you had brought to us before, and basically we've changed 2.4 to the union representative is not part of the chain of command.
Okay.
I think we,
What?
that was supposed to be, I think we just, talking about the 2.3 above that.
What?
Visions of the superintendent require.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be just,
Yes, that's the original, the way we proposed it, and
Okay.
then you had proposed back that, I've got everything all screwed up here, hold on. These are the new ones. You had proposed back that in the situations where an employee is required to
Okay.
provide,
So you added back in the first sentence. I was gonna say, because when I read 2.4, it doesn't have context, but with 2.3, so it's almost like 2.4 should be a continuing sentence in
Correct.
2.3.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
okay, yes. If 2.4 is a continuing part of
Yes,
2.3.
that's what it was supposed to be.
We
Got
can,
it.
yeah, finish that one. And then, it's hard when we don't have each other's things here. And did you get Article 20?
Just change the hours.
Huh?
We just changed the hours.
We changed the hours from 432 to 672 hours per fiscal year.
So
That would
10
be
more shifts.
25 days, so 25 swaps.
And that's basically someone's in school, having to do some extra stuff.
Sick kid, sick wife,
just give them
sick
that
family.
extra ability to,
And this swap, we realized, just for the record, we realized that these swaps are only for the count is for the employee taking the day off.
Yep.
It's not half of those if you're paying somebody back,
to pay
that doesn't
back.
count as.
Correct. It's
Okay,
one
so-
way,
One way.
only.
Right, so this is 25 shifts off of your shift in the year.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep. Which you would be paying back every hour of that when you pay back
Yeah, no,
your
I-
swap.
I
I mean,
get it.
it's,
He
you're
didn't
not.
want it to double tap
right.
you, so it wouldn't.
No, yeah, of
going back
course.
and forth, yeah.
Of course, it's
But
just.
I am thinking of it as it's 25 shifts. It's 2.5 months of your year that you're not with your crew.
And that's possible with paramedic school and.
Sure, but
everything.
that's, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Or mandatory overtime. Or, I mean, we have such a small group here that we're with everyone. I don't think there's an officer here that wouldn't be able to point out some strengths and weaknesses on any particular employee here,
Right.
unless you were brand new. So.
Okay. Do you want me to make the 20 we're gonna have to work on? Do you want me to make the corrections to 2 and we'll sign off on
Yeah,
that?
yeah, that could be done.
All right. Did you guys get to talk about 8 at all, or is that, we're gonna come back on that one? Or
8?
kind of previous procedure?
We're gonna come back on that one.
Okay. Coming back on station facilities,
Yes.
housekeeping.
Yes.
Okay, we just talked about shift.
You can handle it.
You want to have a conversation about 8?
Sure.
So what we're looking at in 8, we're going to propose language cleaned up.
Actually, he may be able to present it.
Yeah.
If he has from his copy.
Right.
Mhm.
So we were going to leave everything that you had so far, and then in 8.2, letter, I'm sorry,
Here, right here is the first.
8.2 under class action.
yes, 8.2, I'm sorry, not 8.2. Class action grievances, we're going to change A from a written statement for each aggrieved employee to a signature, so everyone signs the written statement,
Okay.
so you know who the aggrieved employees are, and if you need to discuss with them, you may.
Okay.
But to collect statements from everyone, you know, the time constraints and everything, it can become difficult.
Okay.
And then on 2, it says class action grievances may bypass. we'd like to change it to shall, so that it's a known, that it goes straight to step 3, not a maybe.
I don't have a, well, let me back up. So if a couple of employees have an issue, you don't want a battalion chief to try and solve it?
If it's a class action grievance, it's gonna.
It already goes to the assistant chief.
Right, I get that, but I mean, if a couple of guys have an issue, well, I guess if it's already in writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just defines the process so everyone knows. And with grievances, timelines, and everything being subject to void the grievance.
Henry, how do we get to the point when these grievances make it to class action status in writing that, because we've had conversations about the company officer, the battalion chiefs interacting and trying to solve these problems at the lowest levels.
I think that's a
How do
conversation
we-
piece at the beginning, right? So before you write any grievance, there should be a conversation
Yeah.
piece within that time period. Hey,
Yeah.
this is the issue, this is where we are, you know, and if, I think that's the point where it can be try to solve at the lowest level.
Yeah,
With us, when we see it getting closer to that timeline that we have, then we're like, okay, well,
yeah.
sound like the lower level ain't gonna, so here's the paperwork to go with it. Now, starting our clock of
Mhm.
that, so.
All right, so maybe we address this when we figure out what the form looks like.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'd like to know that the company officers, battalion chiefs took a shot at resolving this issue before it got to where it is.
Yeah,
So I think maybe we could capture it in the
as we
form.
told you in the past, I'd rather have communication before we file paperwork.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
I think you had one more thing in there.
yes.
Yeah.
So we understand, you want in 20 days, 20 business days to come to a resolution. So we've discussed the impacts to an employee when it's a financial discipline, suspension, demotion, and we believe there is a grievance. We'd like to move all those grievances that have financial impact to the employee right to the chief's level. At the end of the day, battalion chief, a captain, a lieutenant's not gonna be able to resolve that issue anyway. So why make the employee go through a process when he's not gonna get a resolution?
The only thing I could say to that is that I would like to think that my first and second level supervisors might be able to give perspective.
And you can gather that
Yeah.
during your 20 days, but for them to sit there and not be able to give a resolve,
Yeah.
if you terminated.
Now, are you talking about a grievance in response to some, if I issue somebody time off, if admin issues time off for
Yeah.
disciplinary matters,
Yes,
then that would go
yes,
directly.
anything that has a financial impact. So you demoted me, you
Yeah.
suspended me, you terminated me, those
Yeah.
go to the fire chief.
Okay. I get where your head is. I think the terminology that anything with a financial impact is too broad. So if you're saying in response to, disciplinary action,
Mhm.
then I get that more than if, because I mean, I guess any grievance, if somebody feels like they shouldn't have been the one to get mandatory or something, and they could go on their vacation, I mean, you could tie anything
I don't think
to
I don't think
financial.
we're referring to those. I think
No.
we're referring, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm,
Yeah.
yeah, as long as we figure out what that language looks
Okay.
like.
And
There
yeah,
wouldn't-
I guess we could word it to where it is a disciplinary action, because let's say it is a grievance over the fact that
Mhm.
the department forgot to pay me my incentive for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
It could be handled at the lowest level.
Yeah.
We're talking about more disciplinary actions that were taken
Mhm.
than opposed to, someone forgot to put in their right step.
Yeah.
That could be handled at a lower level. The BC could contact Jay and say, hey, we messed up, so-and-so's
Mhm.
paycheck, can we fix it? It'll be resolved, you don't need to be involved in that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be made aware through the process, but
Right.
it doesn't have to come to you.
Yeah. Okay.
So those were the only 2 things that we wanted to,
Okay.
I guess, amend in that, and then we'd be able to TA, and obviously come up with a form.
The other stuff that you presented was, we obviously had a chance to scan over it, but I don't know that we had a chance to dig into it completely. So I'd like to use the remaining time to just try and hit on a couple of high things if we can. Did you, in going through all these extra PPL hours, the union bank and stuff like that, did you do some kind of what-if analysis as far as, you know, running into situations where are we going to have enough people here to actually fill spots? So, for example, like on the education, well, let's go to the, if we can, let's go to the time bank and just for some clarity.
What article is that?
7.
7. Yeah.
Trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
on the time bank, what does that look like? So, for example, what does that have specific uses?
For union issue, for
So
union.
it's just for union business?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't remember seeing a lot of requests. Is 500 hours the right number?
That's like a kind of a standard for other departments that
Yeah.
have a union time bank.
Yeah.
We discussed it as a group,
Mhm.
and that's what we came up with. Once the bank's at that 500 hours, it can just sit there at that 500 hours. It's hours that have already been accounted for, like those 4 hours have been assigned to Billy. Billy has now just basically donated them to this time bank. It has no monetary value to anyone, like upon separation or anything else. Like, it's used for
Right,
union
right.
businesses, union business only.
Some people use time banks, they'll, you know, to help out an employee who's having a hardship or something like that. Is the intent that this?
Those are different. That's
That's
a
different
different
than
time
this?
bank than this one would be.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
This here could be, like I said, for union businesses, union business, and attend, you know, different classes and stuff like that that are related to union
Yeah.
conferences.
Conferences, things like that.
Okay.
And the DVP can, like you said, approve for additional members to, outside itself, to
Yeah.
use those hours to attend those conferences. So
Yeah.
if we go to the FPF,
Yeah.
those hours would then come out of that.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to just clarify, I had a question about the very last sentence. If the union member returns from union activities within 4 hours, the time bank will not be charged. So what does that look like on you know, staffing for tomorrow? Somebody's got a thing down at the hall, or there's an event, whatever they go.
So this has always been on staffing. This
Yeah.
doesn't change that. The union approval time, even my time that if I put in right now to go to the local meeting, which I haven't been able to go to, is based on staffing.
Yeah.
I can take 4 hours of my own PPL, go to the local meeting if there's people to do that, and then when I come back,
Yeah.
within 4 hours, I get my 4 hours PPL back. That's how it sits right now. None
You
of
asked and not been able to go?
there's
Good.
not, well, I mean, I can be here at work and see that there's not staffing, so.
Yeah, but Winston's gone, I mean, that's the type of stuff where we can cover spots. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
know
that's not your job.
That's after the fact, but.
I'm like,
Okay.
so, you know, that's the way it currently reads right now, that if I take my 4 hours PPL to go to a union event, or if I take, you know, if I come back within the 4 hours, it gets credited back to me. So instead, this is basically, instead of the DVP using their personal time,
Mhm.
they'll be using bank time, you know, and it will probably, you know, it'll be a few years, and then the bank will not be credited as often.
If the employees want to put their own hours into the bank, I don't know that I'm going to argue that, but I'm kind of wondering, because we have language, and if, you know, if you or Billy wants to go to a union meeting here in town, and we don't have the personnel, how does the bank?
It doesn't
Fix
solve
that.
that problem.
Okay.
It can't solve that problem, but Billy and I went to convention last year, and we had them pay
Well,
union time.
It does solve that problem, because right now, the way you guys do it is depending on staffing
Mhm.
with this, the bank will get charged, and then it'll essentially pay for the overtime.
But, you know, like a 2 or 4 hour meeting or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
I can't get
Yes,
anybody to come
correct.
in anyway. That's the perspective I'm
Right.
talking about. How do we get somebody in with this language that we're not getting it with the other language, so. Okay. Chris, anything else?
Yes.
non-holidays, as I read it, or as I think I'm reading it,
Article number?
sorry, 14? It's just you're too organized. Got a hole puncher and everything? Nice. Right now, it's $500 stipend,
Yes,
and is it also 12 hours plus $500 is what you're asking for?
yes.
Can you help me
Help you?
understand?
Yeah, well, I mean, you were the one who said, like, hey, we want to give the people who volunteer to work that day
Mhm.
the incentive,
Right.
you know, so you're probably not going to have as much mandatory overtime for the holidays with that sort of incentive going on holiday days.
Right.
I mean, you get your $500 stipend, you get your 12 hours of holiday pay,
Mhm.
and, you know, that's a pretty good incentive for somebody to be here on a holiday that they're scheduled to be here for. So, you know, that's going right back to, you
But
know,
if
last
every-
time
if
when you were
every-
talking about, hey, I want to give it to the people who volunteer,
Right.
you know, the mandatory double time. Well, you know, we're not quite looking at that for some people with even the 12 hours plus the 500 of stipend.
Okay, but everybody gets 12 hours, whether
Yes.
you're on duty or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the stipend is, we agree, is the hardship of having to work the holiday?
On the holiday.
Okay,
Yes.
but then the 12 hours is just, that's not really,
It's
Get rid-
the holiday incentive. It's the one that you were saying last time, you know, like, hey, we want to give it to the people who volunteer to work on the holidays. Well, these people
oh, the
may
double-
not be.
double time for the overtime.
Right, yeah, this is may not be like the person
Okay.
that's volunteering and getting the double time, but this is the person that's getting that holiday incentive for being here and working on that holiday.
Okay. Is this typical in other agreements,
What's that?
to have both across the board and a stipend for those who work?
I think there's a couple out there. There's,
There might not be a ton of them, but something that we have to look at for the future is we have to do some things different here in order to attract people, to build the staff so that we have a future. If we keep doing the same thing over and over, we're going to end up with the same result. And I think that's led us where we are. You know, some incentives are better than others for people when they're looking at a contract. This is a great incentive for somebody to work here. Hey, look, if I'm going to be working on Christmas, I'm going to be compensated very well for that day. I'm going to be away from my family, my kids. I'm not going to be able to be Santa,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is. So,
Okay. If there's anything else monetarily. Walking through the education, just to help so I'm understanding it.
okay.
The district will allocate to each employee a total of $5,500 annually. What do we do now, 5250?
Yes.
5250, okay.
Well, it's upon receipt of a,
So right, do you see that the employees has to turn in their education plan like they do now, or do you
No,
think that goes away?
So what I'm saying is, or what our article is saying is that each year, whether somebody has
28, sorry.
turned in an education plan or not, there's money that's allocated for education.
Okay,
And we're basically asking that the district allocate $5,500 annually for every person for education, with or without an education plan. We've had some conversations about the education plan earlier, and it's defeating to say that all the classes that you're going to attend need to be put in June of the year prior. Why I have secondary education in here is that something that can be put in June.
Yeah.
The secondary education request is because typically you know you're going to college.
okay.
You know, you have to do the entrance exams, you have to apply, you know you're accepted, you know you'll be going to a higher education, university or college or whatever. But for a class like VMR pops up, you've been waiting for it, you're super interested in it, you want to take it, it's over in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
You look at it, it's $500, whatever, I have no idea, I'm making up that number.
Right.
more than that.
It's $500, and you're like, I really want to take VMR. I didn't put, and now it's, you know, say it's January.
your plan.
I didn't put it on my plan in June.
Okay,
Now I have to send it in, and the education czar gets to, approve or disapprove my ability to go to VMR. Well, the money has been allocated to me to go to this class.
Yeah.
So, I should be able to select this class, get the information, enroll, take the class. If it's going to be here within 3 months, as it says in the education plan, then you wait. You go 3 months when it's going to be here in Lee County.
No,
You took that out. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Forget that part. If it's out of town, they're eligible for DM. So they know they can do these classes. They know they can continue their education. They know they can pursue the subjects and the topics that they're interested in,
Right.
and that they can bring that excitement for that topic and that knowledge that they get from that class back here. If you keep people engaged in learning, whether it's what you want them to learn or what they want to learn, they're going to have much more to give back if it's something that they want to learn.
I think the educational plan isn't bad, but the ability for them to attend classes outside of that plan should be there as well. If I don't meet, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like Ricky Rescue, those type of, we approve those all the time,
Right.
whether you have an education budget or not.
Right,
But
it's-
it just,
Mhm.
the education plan that you turn in gives us a basic idea of, and very often I wind up rounding it up, knowing that people are gonna be, taking those type of classes that just come out of, I think the only time they're maybe denied is because, operationally, the class just came around and they didn't sign up for it locally, so
So
from,
what's the difference between you signing up local, whether you take a class locally or take a class somewhere else?
well, because per diem vehicle, there might be 3 days travel time between the day ahead and the day behind and, where it is.
There's an
Yeah.
impact on staffing because you lose the employee in the overnight hour.
That's if it's being covered by the department to attend, right? That's
Somebody
Yeah,
was
if we're
filling that
backfilling
over
spots,
eight.
Correct.
we're trying to backfill your spot.
correct, but if I'm just taking a normal class that doesn't require, that isn't asking for your backfilling, I should not be denied that class, right?
I can't say blanket, every circumstance, but I will tell you that
So say I sign up for a VMR,
Sorry.
sign up for whatever class I sign up for.
Yeah.
It's in wherever, here, say VMR is here locally, I
Mhm.
sign up for it. And I'm using my own time to go.
Mhm.
But I still have money in my bank.
Yeah.
That class shouldn't be denied for me, right?
there's not a usual, I can't think of a specific reason or circumstance where it would be.
Correct.
The exception would be maybe that, if you're using, that has always been, I can speak for myself, my position is always that any reservation that would come from somebody going to a class is just managing staff. So we encourage development as much as possible. Like, we try to make it as easy for people to go to class. The big thing with the career development plans is they help us figure out what kind of classes we want to bring in the following. So if I know that I have a high census of people working on their FO2 or their inspector, or guys that want to take TRT classes, it gives me 6 months to solicit those to come here.
When's the
So the
last
value
time you
of
had a
the-
class
So the value
out
of
here?
the career development plan is
No,
trying
no,
to,
come
trying
do
to.
some in-house
to
training.
produce those sort of things.
And I get that.
But when
what
is
if
the
that-
last
hold on,
time we
Jen,
had a
hold on, Jen.
class?
So what if but you have that ability to do that, but what if that class all of a sudden just happened to come up and you haven't produced that training yet, but it comes up? That person shouldn't be denied to go
Yeah,
because.
And they haven't been, I can't think of, can you
Yes,
cite
Joel.
examples of when people were denied
Yes, Joel.
opportunities?
What reason was he denied?
Because he didn't need the class for his next step. So what?
Okay, so what was he trying to take?
I don't know. What was he trying to take?
He was taking a 330 and the district covered his tuition, but because the class was being offered in short time locally. And we
When
wanted
was
him
it
to take
offered
the
after
all,
that?
the all hazards as opposed to the state level.
So he wanted to take the class. You wanted him to take something different. So he was denied the per diem for that class.
Well, and that's kind of the point Chris is making.
Which is-
If somebody
which is
says,
my
hey, I
point.
found this class, it happens to be in Jacksonville,
Mhm.
you know, and you're asking, okay, sign that off because you've asked, when that same class is available here next month,
Mhm.
we gotta have the ability to financially, we gotta have the ability to say, hold on a minute, you know, we can provide you this class, we have to provide it to you next month.
Right.
You don't have to pay per diem, hotel, travel, everything else, you know, for you to get the same class.
And I'm not unreasonable, I understand that, especially if it's something that's already on the books, that's gonna be here next month. You know, I don't know why someone would insist on going to Jacksonville, that's not the case. And what what we're hoping to do with the education article is simplify the process
Mhm.
and make it easier for the members to achieve their education. And, you know, I included the Florida State Fire College curriculum, the Florida Hazmat and USAR curriculum, the CFO and MFO classes, includes job-specific conferences. I mean, I'm not saying like, hey, they're going to go learn how to be a barber or a
Yeah. beautician
or something. These are all relevant to the job. Just to simplify the process of them getting that without multiple steps of approval to even get to that point. Because as I know we've had this conversation before, is that process is maybe misunderstood by some and then circumvented by others. So.
On 28.2, all classes required for promotion shall be pre-approved. Does that to mean they'll get approval before they take the class, or it's
They're
guaranteed?
They're pre-approved, yeah.
Okay.
They're already approved. We can change it to already approved.
And the district will cover their time off for those classes?
Yes.
Logistically, do you think that works if we have a whole bunch of people who say, you know, if we got a bunch of people who all of a sudden say, I want to test for officer,
Mhm.
and they put in for these classes, well, they're guaranteed, and they all have time off, but wait a minute, we don't have enough bodies to backfill positions. How do we manage that logistically? Because you're guaranteeing that the class is approved, you're guaranteeing that we'll give them the time off. Do you see that happening in the course of building the daily roster, that that's even doable?
I see that if we're fully staffed appropriately, that could be done. I mean.
You said that earlier.
I know, and what I'm saying is running
Yeah.
a shell of 9 with no reserves is not fully staffed and able to do that.
Okay.
But,
So our minimum being 9, our staffing's at 11.
but this is what we're asking for, is that all classes required for promotion, any rank in the educational requirement chart, classes that you would require them to have for promotion or anything else along with the time off to attend those classes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't this similar to what happened with the Pensacola class?
Yeah, so and that's to your point, so when we sponsor training, like if you reference the CFT stuff, is that census, the 5, was chosen purposefully to account for staffing. And
So we can have 5.
No, the intent was for people to apply to those opportunities, and that we would choose the 5 based on staff, on being able to fill the seats, and what was appropriate for the mentorship and development of people in those positions as they related to the classes.
But
So if
initially-
one was geared towards company officers, we would try to send a population heavy in company officers, accounting for scheduled staffing on the books, and not creating a burden for mandatory overtime or overtime in that position in the absence of those people.
But the class went from being offered to officers, then to drivers, then to firemen. So you're saying it's to develop them for the next position,
Yeah.
but I wonder how it went from being first and only, as I understood it, was for the officers. And then no one took it, or already had it, and then it went to the engineers, already had it or didn't want to take it, and then it went down to the firemen. So at one point, I don't remember.
The district prepaid for 5 spots for 4 competencies. The opportunity was offered to the targeted audience for this class. It started at the company officers. We invested heavily in company officers.
Yes,
There was no participation from that level for those classes.
Understood.
So to take advantage of the spot and develop the up-and-coming generation of people that we wanted to mentor into that position, it was extended to them. There's a greater population in the firefighter rank than there is the officer ranks. So it's easier to cover that time. So that's why I say the district is extraordinarily proactive in trying to give people their education. This classes were covered, we were willing to cover the time. Those sponsored opportunities mimic very much what you're presenting here. But they
Which
were-
is
they
what
just
I
simply
want
were not
for-
taken advantage of.
Right, which is, which might have been like some of the impetus behind this is to mimic what was offered for those specific trainings to any training, because there's always going to be, and I've said this before, there's always going to be somebody who needs to drag the hose. And that person may not have the same interest in education level, like that you do, but they may be very interested in, like a CAN class or a nozzle forward class or something like that. And they, like to bring that back or to go attend that, should be encouraged versus making it a multi-step process to get
It is.
to that point.
Currently, there are 10 open roster positions for the next 2 CFT courses. We have had 0 participation in
What's a CFT course?
the Pensacola
Pensacola
classes
stuff.
that are referenced.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is you have a lot of interest in those courses.
Well,
And-
what we
We've
have,
covered the
and you
company officer
have-
level.
and you have-
These are for the firefighter and driver.
But you've already taken them. They've already gone.
I have.
So-
That's what you're referencing.
No, the employees. The employees that were interested in taking that level of class have already gone. And what this is trying to do is make it so an employee that's interested in taking any level of class, an employee who's interested in taking a CAN class, an employee who's interested in going to a HOT conference, an employee who's interested in going to a truck company class, that they get the same consideration for their development that they want to do as the development that you want them to do. And that also includes what they are required to do to achieve promotion. So,
we're running out of time, so
Yep.
I'll wrap this one up by saying that collectively, we want everybody to develop, When we focused on those classes, we see a need to get our officers out and get them, interested and invigorated, and we maybe shot too high on the number of 5, but, we got 0, so we did open it up to everybody else because first off, they were prepaid, but we want the firefighters developing as well, And in that sense, when the officers did not capitalize on the opportunity at all, well, obviously, we opened it up and glad that firefighters and drivers went. I want my officers going. I want them out there engaging and getting this education and training. And if this isn't the stuff, come back and tell us what is, We're trying to find things to motivate people. If people are motivated but afraid to say what they're motivated in, come tell us what you're motivated in, and we'll refine the target. I have as much interest in hot training as I do in developing the officers, so those opportunities are out there. That's why every year we say, tell us what you're interested in. So for education, we're here, we're ready to get everybody developed in whatever way they can for the position they're in, the position they're looking at. So I'm sure we can come up with something here.
good there.
But to be able to have it, unlimited number of people can sign up, it's guaranteed, and so is their time off.
I mean,
Logistically, that we're
but
gonna have
look-
to come up with something else.
But your logistic argument has gone out the window.
Okay.
We have 5 prepaid, fully time covered spots at a conference.
Yeah,
You have
and-
no one signed up. So logistics
And
is
you know
it's not an issue. I mean, you're not going to have 5, 10 people try to sign up for the same thing at the same time.
Well,
You
part
just
of the
said.
logistics in getting those people, it was important to us to the point that either him or I were going to be here riding fire trucks in place of those officers. Those are the logistics that we put in place.
Yeah, but what
You
I'm
just sat here
saying,
earlier and said I
is-
shouldn't be riding a fire truck,
offering the
but
class,
that's what we're willing to do.
offering openness to the education does not mean that the logistic nightmare is going to exist immediately.
Okay, all right. I appreciate everybody's time. We're going to have to chew on the numbers, obviously, on the stuff that we do have.
Do we got another date?
We can do another date. I'm gone until through the 2nd, so
I'm gone through the next century.
forever. Congratulations.
Well, you need Todd.
Todd is not, he's on vacation.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
do it through some emails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
You know, I come back on the 2nd, we go into the 4th of July, so maybe the week after,
Yeah, sometime.
you know, maybe the week after.
Yeah.
Do we know when Tom's coming?
You have your
He'll be
final
back,
numbers
like,
by then
next
anyway,
week,
so.
I think.
Yeah, true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just on like a vacation.
So the week of
right
the
now.
15th, maybe.
Yeah, that, I mean,
That'd be good.
that sounds
Yeah,
good, but
that
I
week
can't
after the
speak
4th,
for him
probably
because,
fine.
Sure.
obviously.
Thank you.
Productive. All right, so we'll go off the record. It is